A police dog wouldn't stop barking at a traveler's luggage, drawing puzzled looks from passengers and security alike. But when officers finally opened the bag, what they found sent shockwaves to the entire airport. Here's what happened. But before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel because tomorrow, at the same time, we'll bring you another unforgettable story of heroism and sacrifice from the world's most extraordinary military K-9S. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow across Terminal 3 of Chicago O'Hare International Airport as Officer Sarah Bennett adjusted her winter patrol jacket. Her breath was visible in the pre-dawn chill seeping through the automatic doors. Beside her, Max, her German Shepherd partner of 4 years, maintained perfect heel position, his dark eyes scanning the steady stream of travelers with practiced intensity. Sarah checked her watch. 5:45 a.m. The morning international arrivals would start flooding in soon, bringing with them the controlled chaos she'd grown accustomed to over her 6 years with the airport's K-9 unit. But something felt different about this December morning, a subtle tension in the air that made her skin prickle. "Ready for another day, buddy?" she murmured, reaching down to scratch Max's ear. The shepherd leaned into her touch briefly, before returning to his vigilant posture. Sarah smiled, remembering the first time she'd met those intelligent eyes at the training facility. Max had been different from the other police dogs, calmer, more calculated, with an almost uncanny ability to read situations. That perception had saved lives more than once. The terminal began filling with early morning travelers, their rolling suitcases creating a rhythmic symphony against the polished floors. Max moved with fluid grace between bags and passengers, conducting his routine security sweeps with military precision. Every few minutes, he would glance back at Sarah, their years of partnership evident in the subtle communication between them. "Morning, Bennett," called Officer Jake Thompson from his post near the security checkpoint, Max looking sharp as ever. Sarah nodded in greeting, watching Max work. The shepherd's black and tan coat gleamed under the terminal lights, his movements effortless despite his impressive size. They just passed the luxury retail section when Max's behavior shifted subtly, a change so slight that only Sarah would have noticed. His ears pricked forward, nose working overtime as he tracked an invisible scent trail. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, years of experience telling her to trust her partner's instincts. Max had never been wrong, not once in 4 years of service. Among the sea of designer luggage near the premium airline check-in, Max's focus locked onto a particular travel trunk, a handcrafted leather piece that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. Its owner, a well-dressed man in his 40s, stood nearby, tapping away on a high-end smartphone while speaking quietly into a Bluetooth earpiece. Max's posture changed dramatically. The casual fluid movement routine patrol transformed into rigid alertness. His tail straightened, muscles tense. Sarah recognized his body language. This wasn't his normal reaction to prohibited items or even narcotics. This was something different. "Sir," Sarah approached the man, keeping her voice professional while positioning herself between him and the nearest exit. "I'm Officer Bennett with Airport Police. Would you mind stepping over here with your luggage?" The man looked up from his phone, his expression a perfect mask of polite confusion. "Is there a problem, officer?" His English was perfect, his manner cultured and confident. The name tag on his luxury trunk read Daniel Lee, with first-class stickers from multiple international carriers. "Just a routine check, sir. Your cooperation would be appreciated," Sarah said. Lee's eyes darted between her, Max, and the terminal exits. Years of training had taught Sarah to spot the subtle tells, the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his manicured fingers tightened around his phone. Max's low growl rumbled through the terminal, drawing curious glances from passing travelers. This wasn't just alert behavior anymore. This was a warning. Sarah had only heard this specific vocalization twice before in their partnership, and both times had led to major cases. "My flight to Vancouver leaves in 40 minutes, Lee protested, his composure cracking slightly. "I have an important business meeting." "This won't take long if everything's in order, Mr. Lee," Sarah interrupted, noting how he flinched at the use of his name. Max positioned himself between Lee and his luggage, his training kicking in without command. The morning bustle of the terminal seemed to fade into background noise as Sarah keyed her radio. Control K 97 requesting backup at Premium Check-In, Terminal 3. Possible situation developing. She kept her eyes trained on Lee, who had stopped typing on his phone, his earlier irritation replaced by something darker, more calculated. Max's growl deepened as Lee shifted his weight slightly, preparing to move. Sarah had seen that look before, the moment when a suspect decides whether to comply or run. Her hand moved instinctively toward her holster. "Sir, please remain where you are," she commanded. But she could see the calculation in Lee's eyes, the subtle tensing of his muscles. The terminal seemed to hold its breath as Max's warning growl reached a crescendo. Time seemed to slow as Lee made his decision. In one fluid motion, he hurled his phone at Sarah's face and bolted, shoving the luggage cart into Max's path. Sarah ducked, the phone missing her by inches, as Max expertly maneuvered around the tumbling bags with the agility that had made him legendary among the K-9 unit. "Stop! Airport police." Sarah's voice cut through the terminal chaos as she pursued Lee. Max was already moving to flank their suspect. Travelers scattered, some filming with their phones as the chase unfolded. Lee's expensive leather shoes clicked against the polished floor as he weaved through the crowd with surprising agility. "Terminal 3, Gate 7. Suspect fleeing east," Sarah radioed, her breath steady as years of training kicked in. Asian male, charcoal suit, approximately 40 years old. Max had already anticipated Lee's trajectory, cutting through a shortcut between airline counters to head him off. Officer Jake Thompson appeared at the end of the concourse, forcing Lee to veer sharply toward the maintenance corridors. That's when Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. Lee had triggered something on a small device in his hand just before running. Possible remote activation device. She updated dispatch, following Max through the service door. The fluorescent lights flickered in the narrow corridor, their harsh glow creating dancing shadows as they pursued their target. The temperature dropped significantly in the maintenance area, their breath visible in the chill. Max's bark echoed off the concrete walls, his special alert that told Sarah they were close. The sound had barely faded when a stack of plastic containers crashed down behind them, blocking their exit route. Lee had been busy during his brief head start. "You really should have just let me leave, Officer Bennett." Lee's voice bounced off the walls, making it difficult to pinpoint his location. Some questions are better left unasked. The distant rumble of aircraft taking off vibrated through the structure, adding to the disorienting acoustics. Sarah moved carefully, Max at her side, both scanning for movement in the shadowy space. "Mr. Lee, you're only making this worse for yourself," she called out, hearing the backup team securing the outer exits. "Whatever you're involved in, we can talk about it." Lee's laugh echoed through the corridor. "Talk? Like Officer Carter wanted to talk 3 months ago in Seattle?" The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Officer Carter, a K-9 handler who'd been hospitalized after a seemingly routine luggage check. The case had been classified immediately, all details locked down. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward, his head turning sharply toward a utility room. Sarah approached cautiously, weapon drawn. The door was ajar, cool air seeping out into the already chilly corridor. Inside, Lee's expensive travel trunk sat prominently in the center of the room, its latches now glowing with an ominous blue light. "Fascinating animals, police dogs." Lee's voice came from somewhere in the shadows. "Such loyalty, such incredible sense of smell. Did you never wonder why Max reacts differently to certain packages?" Sarah's tactical flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing empty chemical storage shelves and discarded maintenance equipment. Max's growl took on a new urgency, not tracking now, but warning. Something about that trunk was very, very wrong. "Terminal 3, Maintenance Sector C," Sarah keyed her radio. "Requesting hazmat team and EOD unit. Possible CBR threat." She remembered Max's unusual reaction upstairs, unlike his normal alerts for drugs or explosives. Lee hadn't just been smuggling contraband. This was something far more sinister. Smart girl. Lee emerged from behind a large electrical panel, his earlier executive demeanor completely gone. "But you're a bit late. The countdown started the moment I triggered the fail-safe. You have a choice now, Officer Bennett. Chase me or deal with that trunk. You can't do both." As if on cue, the trunk's latches began pulsing faster, a faint hissing sound barely audible over the building's mechanical systems. Max's bark became more insistent, pushing Sarah back from the doorway with his body, a behavior he'd only exhibited during their chemical detection training. The sound of running feet and radio static told Sarah backup was nearly there. Lee smiled, pulling a small oxygen mask from his jacket pocket. Time to decide. Officer, your dog knows what's in that trunk. The question is, are you willing to bet everyone's lives that you can stop both me and it? Sarah's mind raced through protocols, training scenarios, everything she learned in 6 years of K-9 work. Nothing had prepared her for this moment. Max looked up at her, waiting for command, trusting her completely despite the growing danger. The trunk's hissing grew louder. Max guard. The command was barely out her mouth when her partner sprang into action, launching himself at Lee with precision that came from countless training hours. The oxygen mask went flying as Max took Lee down, his jaws securing a hold on the suspect's arm with controlled pressure. Enough to stop him, not enough to cause serious injury. Sarah rushed to the trunk, her heart pounding. Up close, she could see it wasn't just expensive leather. The walls were lined with some kind of containment system, and what looked like a sophisticated pressure regulation unit was built into frame. The latches were connected to a timer that was counting down with alarming speed. Control. Suspect secured, she called into her radio. But we need the hazmat team here now. Max is showing chemical detection behavior. Possible airborne threat. The cavalry arrived in a wave of tactical gear and emergency lights as Lee was secured by other officers. Sarah caught the look of surprise on his face. He hadn't expected her to be able to stop both him and secure the trunk. What he hadn't counted on was the absolute trust between Handler and K-9, the seamless teamwork that made such decisions instinctive. But as the hazmat team rushed in with their sensors and containment gear, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Lee's words about Officer Carter and Max's unique reactions hinted at something much bigger than a single smuggling attempt. Whatever was in that trunk was going to change everything. She could feel it in her bones. Max returned to her side, alert but calm now that the immediate threat was contained. Sarah scratched his ears, noticing how the tactical team gave him a wide berth of respect. "Good boy," she whispered. "But I have a feeling our day is just getting started." This story reminds us that true strength lies not in power or technology, but in trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between beings who choose to protect and serve others. Max, despite his traumatic past, chose to rise above it and use his abilities for good. His partnership with Sarah shows that even in the darkest circumstances, courage and compassion can prevail. Let this be a reminder that the bonds we forge, whether we're humans or animals, can change the world for the better. Always choose kindness, trust, and the courage to do what's right, no matter the odds.